With 2 seasons now under my belt and more coloring book pages colored, I can confidently say that season 2 is my favorite, which, granted, is not the most impressive sample size, but still, a lot has happened this season. For instance, Sammy grew on me, Dean broke my heart all over again, and John Winchester managed to derail everything from beyond the grave using just one episode. Hey everyone, I'm Nikanak, and I make videos about everything I question and overthink, and today we're talking about Supernatural Season 2, and how these Winchester boys just love to make deals with demons. So without further ado, let's get into it. And as per usual, let's start with John, because John Winchester was present for approximately one episode before the show decided I was having too good a time. And in that one episode, he managed to both finally say something kind to Dean, which, yay, and simultaneously hand him the worst burden imaginable. So here's what happens. Season 1 ends with a car crash. Everyone ends up in the hospital, and Dean, specifically, is on the verge of dying again. John, knowing this, makes a deal with the yellow-eyed demon, trading the cult and his own soul to bring Dean back. Before the trade happens, Dean is having a full out-of-body experience. He meets a Reaper who tells him that if he doesn't accept death, he will become a vengeful spirit, or exactly what these boys have been and will be hunting. After some deliberation and more conversation with the Reaper, Dean, as much as one can, actually comes to terms with it. Which, if you watch season 1, and I'm assuming you did, we all know this is not a surprise. But then the deal between John and the yellow-eyed demon goes through, and Dean wakes up. John comes to his bedside and says things to Dean he should have said years ago. And then he leans in and whispers something we can't hear. We find out later that he told Dean if Sam ever loses control, if the darkness in him wins, Dean has to be the one to stop him, which means to kill him if it comes to that. And then John dies. His soul is taken to hell, but then he gets avenged in the season finale. So I guess everything ended well for him, and I hope John is with Mary and he's at peace. But oh my goodness, did this whole situation annoy me. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that Dean is alive and well for the time being, but John knows Dean better than anyone. He knows Dean would never walk away from Sam. He would never choose himself over his brother, and he will never, ever, ever stop fighting for Sammy. So in his final moment, John takes that loyalty that Dean has and turns his greatest strength into a contingency plan. And whether he meant it that way or not, that is what it is. A father using his son's love as a failsafe. And I also understand the sacrifice that John made. I do, but to spend your last breath handing your eldest son that responsibility, knowing full well he would move mountains before he ever hurt Sammy, just seems to be like classic John. Now, as for Sammy, if you watched my season 1 video, you know I had some very strong feelings about him. I thought he was compelling on paper, frustrating in practice. I also thought he was someone who spent most of the season so deep in his own head that the interesting stuff kept getting buried. And by the end of season 1, my wish for him was that he would grow. And in season 2, I am very, very delighted to report he did. That said, he is still going through it. Even with the yellow-eyed demon gone, I don't think Sam is off the hook just yet. He spends a lot of time this season terrified of what he might become, and what is interesting is that his fear this season has a direction to it that season 1, at least for me, didn't have. He's not just sad anymore, he is scared of a specific thing, and he is actively fighting it. And I definitely noticed myself having more patience for him than I did in season 1, partly because I understand it better now, and partly because Sam starts doing something he didn't do before. He actually starts paying attention to Dean. There's this one moment in the finale where Sammy tells Dean,
"You saved my life over and over. I mean, you sacrifice everything for me. Don't you think I do the same for you? You're my big brother. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. And I don't care what it takes, I'm gonna get you out of this. Guess I gotta save your ass for a change."
And although this somewhat refers to the demon, it still made me feel a lot of relief and very proud that Sammy actually voiced this instead of just, doing it, because I do feel that Dean needs to be reminded that he's not what he thinks he is, which in his head is probably nothing. And this final conversation at the end of the season also feels like a payoff, because the entire season has been building towards Sam recognizing what Dean actually is to this family. He's not just a brother or a son, but the literal glue that holds everyone together. And separately, this season also shows us what Sam is running from. There is an episode where Sam becomes convinced that they are hunting an angel, and he desperately needs it to be true. The case itself is pretty straightforward. It's a vengeful spirit posing as an angel and directing people to kill. But what makes this episode interesting, I would even say heartbreaking in Sammy's case, is what it reveals about Sam. He tells Dean in that episode, almost in passing, that he prays regularly, and when the spirit turns out to be exactly that, just a spirit, Sam is visibly disappointed because he needed it to be real. He needed proof that in a universe full of demons and darkness, something good was also out there watching, and by extension, someone like him could still be worth saving. But it wouldn't be a Nika video with at least one teeny weeny frustration. And although thinking about it now, I don't think I can blame Sammy for this entirely. So somewhere around the halfway point of the season, Sam learns what John told Dean in the hospital, that if things go bad, Dean is supposed to kill him. And from that point on, whenever things got difficult, Sam's first instinct is to tell Dean to do exactly that, to kill him. And while I understand where it comes from and who is at the root of this idea, what bothers me is that every time Sam says it, he is not just expressing fear, he is reinforcing the exact responsibility John placed on Dean. Without realizing it, Sam is doing John's work for him. I don't blame him entirely for that, once again, but the effect on Dean is the same regardless of the intention. And I understand that Sam is scared, like, I get it, but he does resort to it quite frequently in season 2.
And if I ever turn into something that I'm not, you have to kill me.
Sam.
Dean, I told you to do it, you have to. Dean, kill me, or I'm gonna kill her. Please, you'd be doing me a favor. Give me my gun and leave.
For the last time, Sam. No.
Dude, you ever take off like that again? What? You kill me? That's so not funny.
And every time he said it, I was sitting there and thinking, do you really think your brother is just gonna do it just because you told him? Do you really think that it's gonna be easy for him to do that? Even though he has repeatedly told you episode after episode, season after season, that without this family, particularly you, he is nothing. But moving on from that, and once again, I don't really blame Sammy for this, it was just something that frustrated me. The episode that finally won me over on Sam is about the werewolf. He meets this girl Madison in San Francisco, they connect, and it turns out that she is the werewolf they have been hunting the whole time. So Sammy spends the whole episode trying to find another way out because he can't accept that she has to die for something that was done to her. And I think we all know why that particular detail hits differently for Sam. So they exhaust every option. They find out that there is no cure, and the only way to handle this is by killing Madison. And Madison, when she learns this, she asks Sam to kill her. Dean, being Dean in this episode, wants to shield Sammy from this, but Sam chooses to do it himself, because if you think about it, the easier thing, the season 1 thing, in my opinion, would have been to let Dean handle it and then spiral into guilt afterwards. Instead, Sam walks back into that room and finishes the job. I think this is the exact moment Sam finally understands the impossible burden he and John have been putting on Dean, and he also experiences firsthand the cost of taking the life of someone you love. And also, this scene is just heartbreaking because after Jessica, he had finally found someone he genuinely connected with, only for her to be taken away too. But hey, if there is a bright side to his story this season, at least he didn't end up becoming the yellow-eyed demon's puppet, so that's a win, right? Now, previously, I had a lot to say about Dean. I said he was the emotional core of the show, that nobody was giving him his flowers, and that the oldest child burden he was carrying was real. I also said that I needed season 2 to give him something that belonged to him. So let's see how that went. This season gave Dean his due. Not as much as I would have liked, and not without cost, but more than season 1 definitely, and for that I am uber grateful. But that cost, as always, starts with John. Now, as I mentioned previously in the beginning of this video, it was wrong of John to place that burden on Dean. I wholeheartedly stand by that. I understand to some extent why John did it, but what hurt me the most was Dean's reaction to the whole situation. Because after John dies, he doesn't grieve, he just deflects, he gets very angry, and Sam tries to talk to him, but Dean refuses to go there, to those emotions, which could be a direct result of his upbringing. Dean was raised as a soldier, as we all know, and soldiers don't stop to grieve. They keep pushing forward until the job is done. It could also also be that he is just angry with his father for placing this impossible task on his shoulders, because stopping to feel it would mean sitting with the very real possibility that he one day might have to kill his brother, and I think Dean would just rather keep moving.
Stop what?
Stop asking if I need anything. Stop asking if I'm okay. I'm okay. Really, I promise.
And to his credit, Sammy sees all of this, and despite everything he is going through himself, he keeps showing up for Dean. Which brings me to the Genie episode. The Djinn, or Genie, traps Dean in an alternate reality where none of the hunting ever happened. John died of a stroke years ago, Mary is alive, Sam is a lawyer with Jessica, and Dean has a girlfriend, a home, and more importantly, a normal life. But in this reality, Dean is kind of a mess. He steals from his own mother. He and Sam barely have a relationship at all, and you understand immediately why, because without the mission, without the responsibility of keeping Sam alive, Dean has no structure to hold him together. The version of Dean we have been watching for 2 seasons was built by necessity, but take all of that away and you get a Dean that is lost. But beyond just revealing a different version of Dean, this episode delivers a gut punch in the form of a sandwich. Sitting in his mother's kitchen, he takes a bite and says it is the best sandwich he has ever had. And while the sandwich is simple enough, it represents the stolen childhood comfort he never got to experience, and I was on the verge of tears. And while this alternate reality was far from perfect, it was still a better life than the one he was actually living. But he knew it was not real, and so he chose to, reluctantly I might add, leave it behind. Now once back in reality, beyond this being a sad look at what could have been, this episode, I believe, does not resolve anything for Dean. It doesn't change him. If anything, it just confirms what we already know, that without Sam, there is no point. And Dean goes on to prove this in another episode, where a demonic virus spreads through a small town. Sam gets exposed with everyone wanting to kill him. Dean obviously refuses, telling the others that if they make a move on Sam, they will be dead before they hit the ground, forcing everyone to leave but himself. And in that moment, on the cusp of telling Sam everything, Dean admits just how exhausted he really is. Without Sam, and now that John is gone, there's effectively nothing left holding him together. He doesn't say I'm just struggling, but even if he were to say that, I think that would be enough. Instead, he admits this total crushing exhaustion.
I'm tired, Sam. I'm tired of this job. This life. This weight on my shoulders, man, I'm tired of it.
And in the finale, he proves this yet again, that he will do anything for Sammy. So he trades his soul for Sam's life. Do you hear the echo of my introduction? But yes, he makes the deal. He gets 1 year and then he goes to hell. If he tries to get out of it, Sam drops dead. So once again, everything comes back to Sam in this season. And as much as I love Dean's dedication to his brother, I do wonder if that will ever change. And to my surprise, we actually get a glimpse of how that can look. It's in the Hollywood episode, where Dean was playing pretend as a PA on a film set and was genuinely, visibly happy, thriving even.
Dean, you know when I ask how it's going here, I'm talking about the case, right? We don't really work here. You know, I thought you hated being a PA.
Oh no, it's not so bad. I mean, I kind of feel like part of the team, you know?
And I wanted more of that, although I do know that is not the premise of the TV show, but it would be interesting to see him discover himself beyond just being there for Sam. One thing I do want to mention before wrapping up is I did say that this is my favorite season so far, and the reason for that is honestly quite simple. The story for me felt like it had more on the line. Season 1 was great, don't get me wrong, but season 2 feels like the characters are actually changing, opening up, and that makes it more compelling to watch. On top of that, the show introduced narrative anchors, and although Bobby was present in season 1, his role expands significantly here. We also meet Ellen, Joe, and Ash, and the Roadhouse, at least for some time, becomes a kind of home base before the story takes that away too. But wait, there's more. What makes these anchors, specifically Bobby and Ellen, work isn't just that they exist, but who each brother gravitates toward, and I found that very interesting, because Sam, for instance, leaned towards Ellen, who is warmer and more emotionally direct, whereas Dean leans towards Bobby, who is, practical and never pushes him to talk about anything. It's a very subtle detail, but it reinforces both the difference between the brothers and how they were each brought up. Now, with that being said, let's talk about what I'm hoping for in season 3. First and foremost, fingers crossed that the Winchester brothers find a way out of the deal that Dean made, and if they do, then this will be the 3rd time Dean escapes death. which only brings back my worry from the previous video and what could be the consequences of that. Secondly, as my favorite movie character once said,
"Better out than in, I always say."
I do hope Dean takes that advice, because keeping everything bottled up until it boils over is just not a sustainable practice, and I'm genuinely scared to imagine what happens when it does. And finally, given that the yellow-eyed demon's parting words were essentially a warning that Sam who came back may not be entirely the same Sam as before, I hope Season 3 gives Sammy some breathing room, maybe less possession, less doom, and maybe a moment of peace from constantly feeling like he is irredeemable. And yeah, that's it for Season 2. Please, please, please don't spoil anything, and let me know in the comments what you thought when you first watched this season. I would love to hear your guys' reaction. Do you agree or disagree with my reading? Basically, what I'm trying to say is let's start a discussion in the comments section down below, and if you're still here, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!